Welcome to Women Entrepreneurs Radio with your host, Deborah Bailey. When I started this podcast in 2008, I was on a mission to promote women business owners, creatives, and entrepreneurs. In each episode, my guests provide resources, valuable tips, and inspiration. Women Entrepreneurs Radio is about showing women how to harness their natural strength to achieve success on their own terms. Did you know that you can find the Women Entrepreneurs Radio podcast on many podcast platforms, including Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Spotify, and YouTube also? If you listen on Apple Podcasts, please take a moment to share your feedback and a review. 5 stars is always great, because the more that you share your feedback, the easier it will be for the show to be found by more listeners. So I hope you'll take a moment to do that. And as well, you can stop by the blog, womenentrepreneursradio.com, and you can find extended bios of the show guests and articles and announcements of interest to women business owners. So please make sure you stop by the blog and also subscribe to the podcast on your favorite podcast platform. Oh, wait, before you go, you can also stop by dbaileycoach.com to find out more about my nonfiction books and about my online writing courses for fiction authors. And dbaileycoach.com/brightbooks is where you'll find my paranormal and fantasy romance novels. And now, let's get started with the show. Hi everyone, welcome to Women Entrepreneurs Radio with your host, Deborah Bailey. I am so glad that you could join us today. And I want to get started and introduce my guest. Mandy Cavanaugh's passion for leadership, entrepreneurship, and helping people thrive are the driving forces behind Fuck the Glass Ceiling. Start at the top and stay there. As a feminine entrepreneur, Fuck the Glass Ceiling will help women in executive, leadership, and entrepreneurial roles harness the power of their femininity to scale up their organization without sacrificing their authentic selves. So welcome to the show, Mandy.
Thanks, Deb. I'm very honored to be here. Thank you. Look forward to talking.
Yeah, so do I, actually, because I really love the title of your book. So I think that says it all.
You did really well with it. It was called Forget the Glass Ceiling. And then when it went to publishing, I was like, well, we would like to sell a couple of books, but I still say F the glass ceiling. You did very well.
I was like, let's just go along the way here.
Exactly. Just put it out there.
So, Mandy, before we get started and get more into the topic, could you please share with everyone how you got started in the work that you do?
Well, I have real estate related companies, land development, and global corporate housing. And I got started in those realms. I was working in hospital administration, and it was a very conservative, slow changing industry. And I was not really a great fit for that. I like more of the, upbeat, more volatile industries where change is imminent and you have to change in order to stay ahead. And so I ended up starting my own business, and I light up on real estate. I'm very interested in it. But I wanted to have it to be business to business. So one of my companies is a third-party lodging logistics company that sets up housing for government agencies and corporations. And the other one is a land development business that sets up, we create lots for builders to build homes. So it's still a business-to-business environment. So I liked bigger transactions and things. I guess I used to always say I was lazy, and that I wanted the deals to be bigger so I didn't have to do as many of them.
Hey, why not?
Exactly. Kind of have like attention problems and things, but I also like to sell. So I thought, well, if I'm going to sell something, I might as well sell something bigger because it's not any harder. was my thinking back in the day. And then over the years, I started also doing some other types of consulting work and coaching. And sometimes I did it for free. Sometimes I got paid, but I would say that was my second career. And it was in that world that I ended up, it was suggested to me to go ahead and write this book. So I consider myself to be a serial entrepreneur because I've done a bunch of other projects that I won't mention, but that's how I got started, was just realizing I don't really fit in like 3 of my first jobs. And so I thought, well, I'll just create a company where I do fit.
That makes sense. Yeah, I think that's what happens to a lot of people, that they realize they're not really a part of that other structure that they're trying to work with, and maybe isn't quite the way to go for them. And, seeing how you've had so much experience as an entrepreneur, right now, what do you feel is really the landscape for people who want to get started and go out there and start a business?
It's an interesting time. Obviously bars, restaurants, accommodations, hotels, a lot of industries are struggling, and I imagine there's probably some consolidation happening. Private equity's probably having a field day. But when it comes to just starting a business from scratch, I think there are still opportunities because you have population growth. Especially, I'm in Texas, and it's growing so fast that nobody can keep up. So you either want to find a company, if you're in an area that's not growing, a company that is, an industry where companies aren't doing a good enough job. Maybe there's a lot of maturity in the industry and you could come in and do a better job, go the extra mile. Customer service, I think we could all agree, isn't what it used to be in some industries. And so if you could find a way to differentiate yourself in a market that is quite mature and maybe it's not growing, or you find a shortage of something, a good or a service in an area that is growing, and just ask around. That's really the key, is to ask what is missing and kind of go to the people that you would love to work with. Like for me, it would be, for example, home builders, So go to a home, in my case, let's say you wanted to start a masonry company, or you wanted to start a building supply, or you wanted to start a delivery service, or we could go on and on, but go to the people that you would be selling to, the people that you would want to work with, and find out who's doing a terrible job. Why are they doing a terrible job? They might tell you something like, well, it's hard for us to find employees. Well, what would be an innovative way, especially as a feminine entrepreneur? We have a different way of seeing things. And, that different way of seeing things sometimes gives you an edge when it comes to solving problems. And so, you could create a unique way of finding employees or finding crews or solving problems. And I think it's key for us to be bold and fearless in the face of uncertainty, because that's a hallmark of entrepreneurship, and no time like now to do that. I say, if you don't wait until we don't have to wear masks anymore. Don't wait until this or that, see if you can get started, if at all possible.
And that's really good advice. And, a lot of women may be hesitant to go into environments or I could even say careers that they feel, well, this isn't really something that a lot of women are in. And it sounds as though you have a lot of experience being in these different types of places that maybe a lot of women entrepreneurs or ones who want to start businesses, and they may not even consider, because they're not even sure how they could fit into that world, or not even aware that they can.
My experience is I never focused on the fact that I was a woman really at the beginning. I didn't really think about it much. I didn't think about gender diversity back when I first got in. I did notice that I would be sitting at a table and I was the only female in the room a lot in the early days. But I think if you go in and you provide the service or the product and the professionalism, and you don't bring attention to that fact, you're there just to do business, I think that's going to go a long way, so, I can't think of there's a roofing company, for example. When I think of roofers, I think of men. I do. I must say that I have a bias toward that, but I know this, I had something going on with my roof, called a roofing company, and the female shows up to inspect my roof, and it's her company. And, that's the only way that our biases of, genderfying jobs, if you will, is going to change, is for us to just start doing it, and I'm talking about the roles that we can do. There's some that I wouldn't do because I am a female. Like there's certain oil field jobs, et cetera. I mean, there are still jobs out there I don't have the upper body strength to do, but you get what I'm saying.
Right.
I would say don't let the fact that I guess the short answer to that is don't let the fact that it's a male dominated industry stop you. If you can do the job, that's the short answer.
Mm-hmm. And I think that definitely makes a lot of sense, and a lot of women are definitely doing what they feel drawn to and not really letting those things stop them. And I think that also for a lot of people who are, let's say in corporate as well, there's challenges there at the same time. And, certainly the title of your book refers to that. There's the idea that for some that they can only go so far, which often leads to the frustration of them maybe feeling that they're not where they should be. So, what would you say as far to those women who may be, well, right now this is where I'm at. How can I make the best of being in this environment that may not always be, friendly to a feminine leadership style?
It is such a big question you just asked. I mean, I could start at one spot and I would leave all the other spots open. So let me see
it's huge.
Should we skim the surface or go on one part of that question? Excuse me. The short answer to bullet points. First of all, feminine leadership. If we're talking about the traits of leadership that fall under the notion or the idea that one is being feminine when one embodies those traits, I think it's something that is at the core of what it's going to take to diversify and balance out our leadership globally. And so there's a certain, receptivity or, there's a certain allowing and like a holistic view and things where that energy at a table tends to kind of go invisible, but it should be, and it could be quiet, but not invisible. Like the wind is invisible, but you can see it blowing the trees around. So it doesn't have to be invisible, like not heard and not seen. The effects aren't seen, but it could be a quiet strength, a feminine strength, or very vocal. I don't want to get myself in trouble there. What I'm trying to get at is for a woman like me, or I don't know about you, we could show up and kind of embody our masculine energy and do just fine, just about at any table, I imagine. But when we go into our feminine side, we might feel like we're being overlooked. And so that's why I think that as a feminine leader, it is important to be balanced, just like I would say to any masculine leader to tune into his, feminine energy, if you will, those traits. So it's not to be, so much of a girly girl at work. I hope I don't get in trouble for saying that. I'm trying to find words to answer the question to help people. So, if I go in and I have gone into male dominated, meetings, environments and around the military, and I've gone completely into my feminine side. That's what I chose to do at that meeting. I did not get, very many points across, per se, but if I had a point to get across and I couldn't do it through my feminine energy, I would dial up my masculine a little bit, just a little bit to say, match their energy, so to speak. So it's okay to match other people's energy. What doesn't work is for me to dial up my masculine energy for years at a time, because I've done it, in order to withstand the pressure and operate inside of a culture of kind of like over to adrenaline and cortisol and kind of let my other relationships suffer from doing that. And what the research shows is that there's not really a glass cliff as much as there is a glass ceiling as much as there is a glass cliff, excuse me. And so, it is to be balanced, and it is to, it's really to, if you're in a corporation, I mean, I talk about this in my book. Are you delegating enough? Are you making your team brilliant enough? Are you trying to make yourself indispensable? Are you standing for, the results and not overwork? Look at the results and go ahead and toot your horn about the results you've created, and collaborate and find allies with masculine figures in that organization, and, take care of your energy, your family, and everything, and just speak up and say, I would like to be promoted. What is it going to take for me to add value in the organization that, is required in order to get promoted? I don't know a lot of them that have been passed over for promotions. I know it obviously has, but I can't really speak for what's happening in corporations in the trenches right now. I just can't. That's why I wrote a book on entrepreneurship, because that's what I know. I was a supplier to those corporations, and I talk about how, they promote diversity, but then when we get there, everybody kind of acts the same. So what I'd like to see in a company is where people are diverse, and they act and they think and they speak and they contribute in a diverse manner, By that, I mean, I may not have corporate lingo. I may not speak in a corporate manner. So that's what I mean by speak, I'm kind of like bare bones. I don't use all the acronyms and things like that. It's more down to earth, I guess.
Yeah, they have a lot of those words. That a lot of times don't mean very much.
I go to the meetings, and I've been a supplier, and I have a lot of respect for the companies, but I'm thinking everybody kind of acts the same around here. If you want diversity, like let people dial up their energy, their masculine energy, their feminine energy, their, different diversities of behaviors and ways of thinking and expressing ourselves. Like, right. Corporate party, a productive party, productivity party. Yeah.
Yeah. I think the culture sometimes tends to kind of swallow people up, and then they just start doing whatever everyone else is doing. And then all that gets lost because there's no new ideas and just different viewpoints, because they're all trying to say the same things and use the same terms and things like that. And then you're not really going anywhere. But, as you're saying, for the woman who is starting her business and wants to really step into her leadership style, actually, what are some things that you think are ways that women can really lean into that when they're trying to build their own business and really create these teams that are like really functional and really help to grow the business and not really, I guess, reproduce that kind of environment where everybody just says yes and goes along and there's no new ideas. What are some things you could suggest?
Yeah, well, one of the ways to lean into your feminine leadership when you're starting a business and celebrate, the diversity of different talents and skills and build your team around you is to use, well, first of all, to know yourself pretty well. And I like profiling tools, everything from StrengthsFinder to the Culture Index. My profile is called a Rainmaker. And that was very enlightening for me to find out, because they said you're the person that will write $1 million deal on a napkin and then lose the napkin. So I have to find the person to hand the napkin to immediately and have them process what got put on that napkin. Not to oversimplify it, but you do, in order to start a business where you build a team, and I'm talking about from scratch, not necessarily where you get a bunch of capital from, capital investment. You're starting at kind of bare bones. You need to make sure that you have a viable product or service, and that you're going to have clientele, or that you need to sell your first gig, so to speak. And then you have to budget for building a team around you at some point, very relatively soon, if not at the beginning. I mean, if you're opening a restaurant, you have to start out with a team. But depending on the company, you want to build the team. The feminine way of doing it is building a team around you and what you love doing and what you're not good at, so that the business works for you and you don't just work for it. The masculine way of doing it is to say, this is what this role does. This is what the other role does. And you have like a hierarchy where certain roles are measured and the metrics are kind of the same, no matter who's filling the role. That's the masculine way of doing it. It's very standardized, more black and white. In my experience, the feminine way of doing it is to say, well, I've got this account executive and she's really good at client fulfillment, but she doesn't like making outside sales calls. So I might assign an outside salesperson to her, and this other account executive loves making outside sales calls, but I might give her more client fulfillment support because she doesn't want to handle the details. She wants to sell the job and then kind of hand it off. See what I'm saying? That's the difference between and I'm talking about the energy, not just the way men and women do it, but a masculine way of structuring an organization is very standardized, and the feminine way is more fluid. It can change and adapt, just like we don't raise all of our kids the exact same way. I mean, yeah, you have standards and systems and you have the family and the way it runs, but this kid is different from this kid is different from this kid. And what works with this kid is not going to work with this one. So, same thing in an organization. You can either go with, organize the job a little bit around people's work style, or you can do it the masculine way, which of course creates massive, wealth. It creates massive growth. It can. The statistics show it's a formula for success. But I'm talking about entrepreneurship and avoiding the glass cliff, because nobody else has solved it. Nobody has solved the glass cliff yet. We're in 2021 and there's still less than 5%, right, of Fortune 500 CEOs, I think, that are female as of this, if I'm up to date. So nobody's solved it. And what I'm saying is that it's because the hierarchy and the way, there's nothing wrong with the hierarchy, but the way that organizations standardize the roles across the entire organization is part of it's one of the ingredients that goes into the result called the glass cliff. That's why when you start your own, if you started let's say you started a pet resort up there where you are, and I start one down here, why would we sit down and say, let's do it exactly the same way? You're going to want to do it your way and I'm going to want to do it my way. Why? Because we're having fun. Let's take care of the pets, the customers, but let's also organize that business around what lights us up. And for you might want to sit at the front desk. I don't want to touch the front desk. I want to be back in the back with the dogs. You want to franchise? I don't. I just want to build I'm kind of belaboring the point, but so if you want to start a company, don't start a franchise. Start one where unless you really like following other people's systems and following other people's, unless you need that structure and you don't trust yourself to build it on your own. Maybe you have no business training, then that's fine. But if you have some business training and you kind of organize around the client, organize around the customer.
That makes perfect sense, actually.
And make other people brilliant. Because if you don't make other brilliant and give them enough responsibility. And that's the other thing. It's easy for me to say that, right? But I had no choice, because after I started my company, 3 months later, I had 6 government contracts, found out I was having twins. And I had a 2-year-old. That's why I started the company, was to be with mom. So I had no choice but to ask for help, because I was laying in bed on bed rest after about 6 months. So that's how I learned how to do this, is because I had to. But I see a lot of people suffering, a lot of women suffering. They might have 1,000 employees or 500 employees or 20 employees, and they don't know how to hand it off.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that, because it seems that for a lot of women, there was a sense, I guess, sometimes of feeling like you should be responsible for everything and not really maybe knowing how to hand it off or being comfortable handing it off. How can we work with that? Because in your case, you knew you had to do it, but how do you, advise those women that it's harder for them to say, okay, I'm going to trust these other people or delegate or however it's defined, so they don't feel like they have to do it all.
Yeah, you do have to create standard operating procedures and processes. And no matter how well you do at that, they're going to be up for interpretation, by individual workers. Again, going back to my feminine way of managing. So with that, there are going to be mistakes, and you have to just know that that's part of the game, and don't be a perfectionist. And even though you see what could go wrong, also they might surprise you and have things go right in a way that you never could have anticipated. And at some point you have to just get past the point of no return. I'm going back to the beginning now for somebody who just started a business. You have to, in order for a business to really launch, you have to create a client base where the client and the work is coming in, the clients are coming in, regardless of whether you show up for work that day. Your goal is to start a business where you could say, hey, everybody, I'm taking off for a week, and it would run without you. I mean, that seems very commonsensical, but I've known a lot of entrepreneurs, male and female, who it would stress them out to leave their business for a week. Mm-hmm. They've got work to do. That should tell you what would go wrong if you left. I left for 30 days one time in the early days. I said, okay, I'm going to leave for 30 days. And when I get back, I want you guys to have figured out how to do A, B, and C. And I let the team figure it out, tell me how they were going to do it. So you have to give up knowing everything and thinking that you're the best at everything. You're just the person that started the business. It doesn't make you the best worker in that business. You're just the one that took the risk.
That's an interesting way to look at it, because I think a lot of people would resist that. I know. They'd have a problem looking at it that way and thinking they could walk away from it for X amount of time and trust that the people that they put in place are going to do what they're supposed to do, or, carry things forward. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I think that would be a big challenge for a lot of people. I think particularly women, because I feel that a lot of times women take on so much and feel that they must always take on so much. So I think that's got to be something to be overcome.
It is. And it's really hard. And I still go back into my original business and sometimes, go in there and tinker around and make things, kind of, I say put the train back on the tracks. It's not really off the tracks, but you can go in and do a little remodel in a department, or, it depends on what kind of business you have. You can go in there and fix it up and get back involved. Just because you step away doesn't mean you're never going to get it back, but you want to just let them have some oxygen. And I had a mentor who told me one time that, I was like a pilot who was flying a plane. And then if I would go take care of some little mess that, that happened, it was like the pilot going and cleaning up spilled coffee in the back of the plane. That's just not the pilot's role. And so, that's a good analogy, I think, for some of the messes that we tend to want to clean up ourselves and be involved in. And I'm still guilty of it, So yeah. That's got to be part of the instincts that we have as feminine entrepreneurs.
Yeah. And that's a very good example, for those who are listening and still feel that that's something that they can't do. I think that's a great example that would help to bring it home to them a little bit. So, Mandy, could you please share with everyone, where they can find out more about you and your book?
Yes, you can go to my website. It's mandycavanaugh.com. And there's a free download of a chapter and some things on there that we're giving to people. But, I'm also on Telegram at Mandy Cavanaugh, and I'm on, of course, LinkedIn right now. I kind of got off of the other platforms for a while, Facebook and Instagram. I'm not really on those at this time, but you can find, and I'm also in Clubhouse. I'm about to start some rooms on feminine entrepreneurship. I was thinking about doing a podcast, but you put a lot of work into these things. And I was thinking, I like the Clubhouse app where you can just go on and talk. It doesn't get recorded. You don't have to edit anything. So I might do that, and I'll just be a podcast listener, not a podcast creator. See, there I am following my own coaching because I know what I'm good at and what I'm terrible at.
It's really kind of funny because I haven't been on there, but I've heard, I keep hearing about it. But the thing is, when I started this, I was on Blog Talk Radio, which is still around.
Oh, big one.
And all you do, you really just are live and you have conversations and then you go about your business. You don't have all the editing and all this kind of thing. Then over time with, podcasting, suddenly now, you've got to do this, and this, and they've got this whole list of things you have to do so you can get your things out there. But it looks as though Clubhouse is just taking that back to just basically doing your thing and not having all this other overhead going on.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what happens with that app. It's taken off.
Yeah, I definitely have heard more and more about it. And like I said, I really am interested when you see things blowing up that people are involved in, and then you see, okay, how long is this going to go? Because you see apps come and go, and then suddenly they get acquired and taken over, and then they disappear or something for one reason or another. But were gobbled up by whoever decides that this may be competition, so we're going to grab this. But I think it would be better if there are more options for people, because like you were saying about having a person that has their own style or their own way of doing something, I think as far as these apps and the communication and how people are using them to network and share ideas, I don't think there's only one way to do that either. So I'm really hoping that these things can continue and not all be consolidated, because I think that really hurts everything.
I see that as well. Yep.
Yeah, it just makes everything the same. And then of course we're back again to
algorithms. Yeah.
Right.
I'm done with the algorithms. I got caught up in meme world for a while. I was trying to make all these memes for my book, and I said, I don't like myself when I'm trying to create memes. Because you have to be so sassy. Like, it's ego, you got to get a bunch of likes, and you have to be kind of crappy sometimes. I didn't like that. Let's talk business. I'm a businesswoman.
Well, that's a good point. That's a great point, because I think a lot of business people really feel sometimes like they don't want to have to do all of that stuff because they feel like they're being taken away from the core of what they're trying to accomplish.
I don't have time for that. Yeah. I don't have time for likes and followers. I mean, it'd be nice, and I respect people that are able to pull that off, but I like this conversation and, the people that are listening here, and, instead of creating some meme that's going to go viral, it's just, so. Yeah. Because if an entrepreneur and you want to get wealthy, get off your social media and get busy.
A lot of people won't like to hear that.
Well, I'm sorry. I mean, unless you're making the money on social media, then there you go.
Exactly.
Like I said, I have a lot of respect for that. That's a lot of work.
Exactly.
But, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm talking about moving products and services. Entrepreneurship for the rest of us. I don't know how to pose on Instagram. Yeah,
a lot of, people who push the whole social media marketing and you must do this and you must do that. And it gets to be a bit much.
People who have it figured out, I mean, it's amazing to watch. They know how to do it. It's not I have an ancient marketing degree that's totally obsolete now.
So, well, yeah, it's like, you've got to take pictures on the beach or I guess, I don't know, in wherever place and sell that. But that's kind of far removed from what a lot of people are trying to accomplish. And who knows, maybe the pendulum is going to start swinging back to something else after a while, because it's at the point where you're like, look, I can't do all this.
Yeah.
It's much too much. So I think that's a really refreshing attitude about it, and it makes a lot of sense. for people who feel they have to be everywhere and they're not really doing what they really came to do, what they want to accomplish, actually. So, Mandy, I know that you're having some weather where you are when this is being recorded. This is the weather week from hell going on everywhere. So
I've lived in Texas my whole life, and I've never seen snow like we have right now. Never in my life. It's the snowstorm of 2021.
It's just
shut down everything. I haven't had water. I haven't had a shower in 2.5 days. So I have no water in my house.
So, I'm like I had said earlier, I'm just, thank you for taking the time, because this is like in the middle of everything. We're still trying to have our conversations and do what we have to do, but it's been a very interesting month, I think, as far as weather. Mandy, before we wrap up, do you have any final thoughts to share with us?
I hope that the women entrepreneurs who are listening got some kind of value out of this conversation. There's so many different kinds of entrepreneurship, and this is just my story. This is just my experience, and I'm honored to be connected to you all. And I hope that I'm going to go back and listen to some of your back episodes, because, I'd like to connect more. I'm not selling anything. I mean, my book is like at cost on Amazon if you want to get it. But I would love to support you if you're thinking about starting a business, or if you've had a really tough time during the pandemic this last year. We all kind of have this hangover, or at least a lot of us do. So, find ways to inspire yourself. And the key is to stay inspired, find new ways to inspire yourself and turn off the news. Remember why you started. Remember that you're a leader, and things are going to get better. So, it's all about inspiration for us.
And that's great. And I want to thank you for saying that, because I think people need to hear that right now. Not really sure where they're, for some people, not really sure where they're headed, or what changes they're going to have to make going forward. And everyone, we're going to have Mandy's contact information in the show notes, so you can certainly follow up with her or check out her book and really get some ideas for yourself and where you're moving forward, or, even if you've already got things going on right now, and it doesn't hurt to learn some new things and see what else you could be doing. So I hope that you will do that. But Mandy, I want to thank you so much for joining me. And, I will continue to hope for the best for you,
Yeah, but my water should be on tomorrow. So.
Oh,
thanks.
Thank goodness.
Is this going to be video, or is it only audio?
Audio.
That's okay. No worries.
Everyone, thanks so much for joining us. And this has been Women Entrepreneurs Radio with your host, Deborah Bailey. Thanks so much for joining us, and we'll see you again next time. Bye. Thanks for joining us. Don't forget to stop by womenentrepreneursradio.com to read extended bios of the show guests, and also find links there for their websites and any offers that they have shared with you. And stop by our Facebook page at facebook.com/womenentrepreneurs.